In this video, I'm going to show you how to get audio into a camera or video switcher from your front of house mixer for live streaming. And then I'm going to take a look at some strategies for mixing an aux output for video. Hello, I'm Stephen Ballast. Welcome to my channel where I explore worship technology solutions. I've been asked the question here on my YouTube channel, what's the best way to get audio to my live stream? So this video is part of a series of videos where I'm going to show you some different methods for doing that. In this video, we're going to look at creating a mix for your live stream using an aux output from your front of house mixer, and how to properly connect that to your camera or switcher. If you've watched my channel, you've heard me talk about having a roadmap for your live stream. If you've just started following my channel recently, you may have missed that I have a 3-part series that gives an overview of things to be aware of when you start live streaming. It talks about everything from cameras and lighting to sound. And in those videos, I talk about having a roadmap or a plan for where you are now and where you want to get to. I think you're going to get the best sound on your video having all your audio channels separated out to a second dedicated mixer for video. I realize though that not everyone is going to be able to start there. So for a lot of people, using an aux output from your front of house mixer is probably going to be the best option for the first stop on your roadmap. To avoid having sync issues between your audio and video, I recommend embedding your audio into your video as soon as possible in your video chain. In a single camera setup, try and input the audio directly to the camera. That's why it's important to use a camera that has an external audio input, and why I like the Canon R800 as an entry-level camera. Even though it's really cheap, it still includes external audio inputs. The cables you need to connect your camera and mixer will depend on what output connections your mixer has and what input connections your camera has. Usually the mixer will have either 1/4 inch or XLR outputs, and your camera most likely will have either a stereo 1/8 inch connector, or on more professional cameras, it may have XLR mic inputs. So depending on what your camera and mixer have, you're going to need one of these 4 cables. I have links to each of these down in the description of this video. There are 2 additional things that you may need to do in between your mixer and your camera. Most cameras are going to have a microphone input that requires microphone level signal, and most mixers are going to be outputting a line level signal. So just directly connecting the 2 together is most likely going to result in the inputs of your camera being overdriven and distorting easily. What you can do is put these Shure A15 LA line adapters in line. They convert the line level signal to microphone level for your camera. The second thing you may need to do is take care of any ground loop that occurs between your camera and mixer. A ground loop sounds something like this. It occurs when 2 devices are plugged into different outlets that have a ground at a different voltage potential. And when you connect their grounds together through an audio cable, a current flows through the cable from one ground to the other, creating the buzz. The easiest way to fix this is by putting a hum eliminator in line between the devices. I really like the EBTech HE2 because it has both 1/4 inch and XLR connectors, which you can use to do any connector conversions you need between your mixer and camera. If you have a video switcher, just take that same output from your mixer and connect it to the XLR inputs of your switcher. The inputs of your switcher are going to be line level, so you shouldn't need to do any conversion there, but you may still need the hum eliminator. Right now, I have this Allen & Heath Q16 board connected to my Canon R800. I'm going out through the mixer's XLR connectors from stereo aux output 910, and running an XLR cable through the A15 line adapters into the hum eliminator, and from there running a dual 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch stereo cable into the camera. Now that we have everything connected up properly, let's talk about how you would go about mixing an aux. First of all, let's talk about why you'd want to do this. Why wouldn't you just take a direct feed from the main mix and send that to your video? What it boils down to is that for 90% of the situations you'll come across, the room and the stream require a different mix. For example, this is a relatively small mixer, something that you'd probably use in smaller venues. Smaller rooms where you have drums, you probably wouldn't even mic them to be amplified through the sound system. If you just took a feed straight off the board, it might sound something like this.
I come desperate to be rescued. I come
While that may have sounded fine in the room, there's a lot lacking in it. We can do better. What I've got set up here are some tracks that were recorded live for virtual soundcheck that are playing from my computer into the Q16, so I can mix them just like they were happening live. These are just raw tracks that were recorded straight off the stage. On the Q16 here, to access the aux sends, you use these buttons over here on the right. I'll hit the mix 910 button, and the faders will flip from the main mix to my live stream mix. And the first thing I'll want to do is add in the drums. Notice that it gives so much more life and drive to have those drums there. Even though he's not playing much on this song, you've got to start thinking like you're making a recording where you've got to mic everything for it to be heard. But remember, I haven't added those drums to the house mix, I've just added them to the aux. Now I'm going to add in some crowd mics, or AR, which stands for audience response, as some people call them. I really think that audience mics are so important to the live stream experience. I actually use 9 microphones in our room for the audience, but since this is only a 16-channel board, I didn't have enough channels to run them all in by themselves, so I mixed them down to a stereo pair of channels. So let's listen to what those add to the sound. Notice how that takes a lot of the edge off that we normally get from a direct board feed sound. It makes it sound a lot more natural. Finally, let's add some reverb. First, I'm going to take the reverb return, which is on a different layer here, and turn up the return send to the aux. Now if I come back to my normal layer and switch to the FX processor mix over here, I'll send the vocals. Doesn't that have so much more life to it? More like you're there. You may notice that as I've added these layers, the vocal has gotten a little buried. I'm going to say something that could be a little controversial. Normally when I approach a mix, I think of the vocals on top and the smack of the snare right behind that, and everything else kind of falls together under it. But when I've been approaching a mix for live streaming, and I'm talking about congregational singing, not a concert, I'm okay with the vocals getting a little competition from the room mics and not being quite as prominent as I would even have them in the room. This may just be my preference, but I think the experience in the room with the AR mic should be right up there biting at the heels of your vocals. That's one reason why having your room mic'd, and mic'd well, is so important. I have a video that's going to be all about room mics coming soon, I hope. I thought it was going to be done a long time ago, but as I've been going through this process of experimentation and trying to improve our room sound, recording different mics in different locations, it's taken me longer to come to any conclusions than I thought it would. So be on the lookout for that video coming soon, and be sure and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you have any questions or thoughts, be sure and leave those in the comments too. Until next time, bye.